This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to the Unstoppable Indians. Every week we take a journey into the life of an outstanding Indian, a person whose talent, acumen or moral example is transforming India. The best, the finest from every field join me, Manvi Dhillon, on this show to share their life story, their journey to success, the knocks along the way, what made them get up and keep going, what makes them an unstoppable Indian. My guest today is considered India's finest actor, a credible actor, a bankable star. That's certainly an enviable combination of attributes. He's made a career out of being choosy in his choice of films. In an industry where movie stars make several movies a year, he at best makes one. Yes, I think I've given it all away. My guest today is Aamir Khan. Aamir Khan, thanks very much for joining us on The Unstoppable Indians.
Sure.
I used two adjectives, and I don't know if they do justice. I don't think they do. But a thinking hero, a bankable star. Do you want to add to that?
No.
No?
Not really, no.
You think that they do justice?
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm happy that I'm doing well, and I'm happy that people have been liking my work over the last so many years, and it feels really nice. I'm also excited about the kind of work that I have been doing. Very happy with that, with most of it. So I'm doing okay, yeah.
It's actually nice to be able to combine both, isn't it? Make meaningful films that are also commercial successes.
Well, actually for me, they never were two different things, because I think that cinema is, in its style, it is a mass medium. You're not communicating to one person, you are communicating to a theatre full of people and a lot of theatres. So it is a medium in which you are actually trying to connect by and large with the large majority of people. So for me, when we're making films, we're telling stories, and I think it's our profession is that of being different each time. Unlike in other professions where you have products where you make something, and then you have to, if that becomes successful, you have to replicate that. Like, maybe a Nokia phone, if it's successful, you just keep producing
Making
many of
more of
those
the
same
same.
models which people are liking, and But here, it's quite the opposite. You make a film, and then it has to be something different each time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that while doing different films, each film that you do hopefully is different, but apart from that, I wanted to be popular, and I wanted to reach out to many people. So for me, it's never been two different things. It's always been
The same.
I'm attempting to say something different each time and reach out to a lot of people.
But it wasn't always like this. I want to rewind 20 years. Right at the beginning of your career, 6 months into your first film, you signed another 8. It was hard work,
Yeah.
took a couple of years to wrap up. They started releasing, and there was sketchy response to them. Was that period pretty tough? You look back and say,
It
horrible?
It was a huge learning experience for me. When my first film released, QSQT, it was a huge success, and a film that was, something that I, very much my sensibility. And I was very new at that time, of course, and I signed on about 8 films thereafter. And I thought each of these scripts were quite nice, actually. But I soon realized that in filmmaking, the director is the most important person. And I have to choose my directors really carefully, because when I'm listening to a script, I'm imagining how it's going to turn out, but the director is imagining something else, the producer is imagining something else. So the bunch of people you're working with, if they're not on the same page as you end up somewhere else.
So in hindsight, was that the toughest period of your life?
It was, professionally, yes, it was the toughest period of my life. And it was tough for me because I had taken on a lot of work, and, well, one-fourth of what others were doing, but still too much for any sane person. And I at least for me, and I couldn't. I had taken on so much work which I wasn't happy doing, and I just had to finish it as quickly as I could.
And that's when you decided to sit down, take a deep breath and say,
Yeah.
I've got to think about what I signed up for.
Yeah, because what happened is within 6 months of QSQT releasing, I signed these 8 films. And I realized what a mistake I had made when I began shooting for them. But there was no way out of it, and I wanted to, stick to my commitment and finish these films. And each of them, as they began to release, they weren't doing well at the box office. And I was being called a one-film wonder, and that was the end of my career, and I could see that coming. And at that time, I decided that no matter what, I'm never going to sign a film unless I am really happy with it and I really believe in it. And even if it ends up, even if this ends up being the end of my career,
So be it.
I am not going to sign a film unless I'm happy with it. I'll still make mistakes, but
Yeah.
they'll be mine. And so it was a tough period for me because my films were releasing. I was not signing any new films to safeguard my career because I wanted to finish these, and these were releasing and not doing well. And I had to work within these 8 and make sure that at least one of them pulled me out of the slump. And Dil came out, and Dil did do that.
At that point, where did you find that faith, that courage? Because you were new in the game. It was an important part of the chapter that was beginning. Where did you find the faith?
I don't know whether it was faith or courage. For me, it was just trauma. Because I used to go home and I used to cry in bed. I was like so unhappy with the work I was doing. So I would, I'd say I cannot do this. It's something that I cannot do. It doesn't matter whether I'm successful or, So it's not the faith. I don't know whether I'm going to be successful. So it's not the courage to be successful. It's just that I can't deal with this. So for me, it was more of that. And yes, it does require courage because on the other side, you want to be practical. You have a family, you have a future, you want to be, financially independent. But these thoughts would always just get pushed aside because I was very clear that I didn't want to work in that manner.
Now, of course, you almost have excuse the comparison, but a Stanley Kubrick type of discernment in choosing movies. And, there's a mix of commercially viable and and some that are experimental releases. How do you decide, because when we're watching Aamir Khan's movies, we say, wow, how did he decide to do that movie? And then how did he decide to do that movie after that?
Well, I enjoy surprising my audience actually. I think I go with my gut and my instinct. When I'm reading a script or listening to it, I'm the audience, and if it moves me, it attracts me, I go towards it. And so the initial decision of doing it is very, very instinctive. Having made the decision, I then sit down with the core team, which usually is the director, producer, and maybe a couple of more people, and we figure out how to make it practically viable. And then I go into the practical aspect of it. Maybe it's a film which, for example, Tare Zameen Par, which is an extremely unusual film for mainstream cinema. It's got no leading lady, there's no romantic track in it, there's, someone like me who's a star comes in halfway through the film.
Yes.
It's a film about childcare and education. I mean, for Christ's sake, who is interested in, or who would be interested in watching a film?
The word dyslexia is not well known in India.
Yeah. And so when we are starting to attempt something like this, which all of us believe in, one of the things that is important for a project like this is that we scale it down in its budgeting, so that we ensure that the amount of money that goes into making it, at least that is recovered. So the investors don't lose, people in the market don't lose. And I think that's an important responsibility that I personally feel as a creative person. I don't want to experiment on other people's monies.
Is there any particular choice of a film that you made in the recent past? After you made that choice, it really scared you?
I think all of them.
All of them?
All of them. I have to say that, today all of these films are successful, so I can sit back and, take a sigh and say and be happy about it. But the journey of each of these films, and I keep talking to my friends, in the fraternity, and I laugh, and I'm like, each time I choose a film, I just choose a mountain to climb for some strange reason, or I get attracted to these really difficult films, Sarfarosh or Lagan, Dil Chahta Hai, it's such a freak. I mean, it's not mainstream really, it's such a thin story.
You like history? Or is it fair to say that you like history?
I do like history.
With Lagan and Mangal Pandey?
Well, Lagan is not historical, it's a piece of fiction.
But set in historical context.
I do enjoy reading history, yeah.
Mangal Pandey.
Yeah.
Can I presume to say that must have been a tough role for you to research? Because, he is so much a part of Indian history, and yet there's so little about him.
Yeah.
There are only 3 recorded dates, I believe, about him.
Yeah.
Was that one of the toughest roles you played?
I think so. I think it was one of the toughest roles. when I went through the research, I found very little recorded about him. So um, I didn't know, to begin with, I was a little unsure what to base the character on. And then I realized that actually Mangal Pandey is, he is a myth. And I must play Mangal with the essence of what that myth is saying. Because in fact, he is not real anymore. you know. And to put it differently, because a lot of people have asked me that, have you, really over dramatized Mangal, or have you made him a larger hero than he actually was? The fact of the matter is, how many sepoys do you know by name from the 1857?
Exactly.
First War of Independence. How many sepoys do you know by name? Just this one?
Just this one.
So then let's look at it that way. So I'm saying that what he actually was, none of us really know today because there's very little recorded about him, but what he meant to us is what I have to play.
Lagan and its nomination for the Oscar, there was such celebration here in India. Were you disappointed when you didn't win?
Yes, I was. I think I would have liked it to win, certainly. But I was really happy that it actually got nominated, and more importantly, you see, it's finally getting nominated or winning is ultimately the opinion of a certain bunch of people, and you have to take it as that. This is a very subjective field, and people have different opinions, and you have to respect that. But what is important, actually, what I really was happy about, is that the film traveled on its own across the globe and managed to entertain people from different cultures and different backgrounds. So when we talk of the Academy, what actually excites me is all the members who saw it really loved it.
And that was gratifying.
And that gives me great joy. Because when I was at the, when I was at the award ceremony that night, and we didn't win, and No Man's Land won, which was a great film again, at least 40 or 50 members of the Academy came up to me and Ashutosh and my wife Reena and said, we were so upset your film didn't win because we really loved it. And we had voted for it, and we were really hoping it won. And that meant a lot, because I felt that ultimately, out of these 50 films from all over the world, here is a film which has managed to touch or entertain these people so strongly that they selected among the top 5 in a process which is very rigorous. And that speaks a lot for the film. And so I was very happy that the film had managed that.
So it's fair to say that the Oscars do mean a lot to Aamir Khan, because you're legendary for not paying much attention to awards here in India.
Well, if you want me to prioritize, I think it's my audience which means
the most
to me.
But in terms of awards?
In terms of awards, I think I don't see any awards in India which have value for me. Because if you just look back in the last 5 years and see which films are nominated, forget which have won, it will give you an idea as to how we view excellence. And that's not how I view excellence. So these awards have no value to me.
They don't matter.
Whereas if I look at festivals abroad, perhaps, or the BAFTA or the Academy, I find that the kind of value that is given to excellence in different fields of creative work in cinema is something that I do subscribe to. It is something that I find that I am on the same wavelength with, same sensibility, and so therefore it has value for me. Certain films which are nominated over here in India, for me, would be nominated in the worst film categories. And if these are getting nominated it doesn't have value for me anymore. I mean, where are we?
When Tracy Jackson, the scriptwriter, hosted a dinner for you in New York 2002 ahead of the New York release of Lagan, she said it felt like hosting Clark Gable in 1944. Was that amusing, or is it really flattering?
Well, Tracy is a fun person, and yeah, I remember the dinner actually. It is, but I guess it is flattering. What can I say?
Clark Gable, 1944. I mean, to
can't get better than that.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a great fan of the films of that time and that era and the heroes of that time. It gives me great joy to be compared.